Have you ever noticed that sometimes your blood sugar is actually higher in the morning, especially on the nights when you barely ate anything? That confuses a lot of people, because logically it should be the opposite. You went hours without eating, no dessert, no bread, no carbs. And somehow you still wake up tired, heavy, with elevated blood sugar and that strange feeling that your own body is working against you. What makes it even more frustrating is that many of these people are genuinely trying to do everything right. They cut sugar, reduce carbs, start walking more, take supplements, try to sleep better, and yet their body still responds poorly. Their energy crashes throughout the day. Meals leave them exhausted, their mind feels foggy, the weight refuses to move, and eventually they start believing it's just aging, or that their metabolism is somehow broken forever. But what most people never realize is that, in many cases, the problem doesn't actually begin with carbohydrates. Carbs simply expose a system that's already struggling underneath. Think of your body like a house powered by electricity. Glucose is the fuel coming in. Insulin is the signal telling your cells to let that fuel inside. But there's one silent, almost invisible piece that helps the entire system function properly. And when that piece starts running low, everything slowly begins to fall out of balance. The insulin signal weakens. Cells stop responding efficiently. Glucose stays in the bloodstream longer than it should. The body recognizes something is wrong and starts releasing even more insulin trying to compensate. And over time, that's exactly how insulin resistance begins to develop. Let me pause for a moment, because this has everything to do with what we've been talking about. When these signs start showing up more often, many people realize the body may need extra support to regain balance. I left something in the first pinned comment related to natural ingredients that have been getting attention around this topic. Now let's continue, because this gets even more interesting. What's fascinating is that one specific mineral is deeply connected to this entire process. A mineral involved in hundreds of reactions inside the human body. Yet hardly anyone talks about it enough. In fact, long-term studies found that people with higher levels of this mineral had a dramatically lower risk of developing insulin resistance over time. And maybe the most surprising part is this. Many people struggling with constant fatigue, unstable blood sugar, anxiety, poor sleep, and a slowing metabolism may have been living with a silent deficiency of this mineral for years without even realizing it. Because the symptoms don't appear all at once. They creep in slowly. First comes the exhaustion after meals, then the difficulty waking up feeling rested, the constant cravings in the middle of the afternoon, brain fog, light, restless sleep, irritability that seems to come out of nowhere, and little by little the entire body starts losing efficiency. What happens inside your cells is even more interesting. When you eat, glucose enters the bloodstream and needs to be converted into usable energy. That process depends on a molecule called ATP, which works like the body's internal battery. Nearly everything depends on it. Your muscles, your brain, your heart, your metabolism, all of it. But there's one problem. ATP alone doesn't work properly. It has to be bound to this mineral in order to efficiently produce energy. In other words, many people have plenty of fuel circulating through their body, but they can't properly convert that fuel into real energy. That's why so many people eat a full meal and somehow feel more tired afterward instead of energized. It's like filling up a car that already has a failing engine. And this explains something that confuses so many people. Some individuals cut carbohydrates and genuinely feel better at first. Their blood sugar stabilizes a little. The bloating improves. But after a few weeks or months, the symptoms slowly return. The fatigue comes back. The body slows down again. Because reducing carbs lowers the pressure on the system, but it doesn't actually repair the system itself. The root problem is still there. And there's another important detail that almost nobody talks about. This mineral also plays a direct role in how the pancreas releases insulin. Most people imagine the pancreas simply dumping insulin into the bloodstream nonstop, but that's not how the body works. The body functions through carefully organized pulses. Tiny electrical signals control exactly when and how much insulin gets released. And when the body becomes imbalanced, those signals start to break down. Sometimes the body releases too little insulin. Other times it releases too much. And that creates the strange experience many people know all too well. One day you eat a certain meal and feel perfectly fine. Then 2 days later, the exact same meal completely crashes your energy. It doesn't seem logical, but there's a biological reason behind it. And maybe that's exactly why so many people feel frustrated today. They think they need more willpower, stricter diets, more restriction, when in reality, their body may simply be operating without the basic resources it needs to produce energy and regulate blood sugar correctly. And the most concerning part is that this imbalance doesn't just affect blood sugar. It slowly starts affecting sleep, stress hormones, brain function, metabolism, and even the way the body responds emotionally to everyday life. Because once this system quietly falls out of balance, the entire body begins operating in a constant state of internal stress. And this constant state of internal stress changes far more inside the body than most people realize. Because when the body stays under stress for too long, cortisol slowly becomes part of the problem. Cortisol is your main stress hormone. It exists to help your body survive difficult situations. The problem is that your body can't really tell the difference between emotional stress, poor sleep, unstable blood sugar, chronic worrying, restrictive dieting, or constant exhaustion. To your system, all of it feels like a threat. Let me pause for a moment, because this has everything to do with what we've been talking about. When these signs start showing up more often, many people realize the body may need extra support to regain balance. I left something in the first pinned comment related to natural ingredients that have been getting attention around this topic. Now let's continue, because this gets even more interesting. And every time cortisol rises, your body releases more glucose into the bloodstream to create quick energy. That's exactly why so many people wake up with elevated blood sugar, even after not eating anything all night. The body has spent hours in a silent state of tension. Cortisol rises more aggressively in the early morning hours. More glucose gets released. And people wake up thinking they must have eaten something wrong the night before, when in many cases the real problem started long before dinner ever happened. What makes it even more complicated is that stress itself accelerates the loss of this mineral inside the body. In other words, a dangerous cycle begins to form. Low levels increase sensitivity to stress. Stress raises cortisol. Cortisol disrupts blood sugar and damages sleep quality. Poor sleep worsens insulin resistance even more. And little by little, the body enters a constant state of exhaustion without fully realizing it. That's why so many people feel exhausted and overstimulated at the same time. The body feels drained, but the mind never fully slows down. People wake up in the middle of the night, sleep for hours, but still wake up tired, struggle through the day with low energy, and then somehow still feel wired at night. Over time, the entire metabolism begins to slow down because the body no longer feels safe. And sleep plays a much bigger role in all of this than most people understand. Just a few nights of poor sleep are enough to significantly reduce insulin sensitivity. Blood sugar becomes harder to control, hunger increases, cravings for sugar become stronger, and the body shifts into energy-saving mode, storing more and burning less. That's when many people start feeling like they're doing everything right, but nothing changes. They eat less, try harder, jump from one diet to another, and their body still feels stuck, because the body is operating in survival mode. And there's another layer to this that almost nobody talks about. Even vitamin D, one of the most popular supplements in the world, depends directly on this same mineral to function properly inside the body. Many people take vitamin D for months without noticing any major improvement. Their lab work may improve, but their energy stays low, the fatigue remains, and blood sugar continues to feel unstable. What almost nobody explains is that the body needs this mineral in order to properly activate and use vitamin D. Without it, the entire process becomes less efficient. And that's when so many things suddenly start making sense. Energy production, blood sugar regulation, sleep quality, stress hormones, brain function, muscle recovery, and even the body's ability to properly use other nutrients all depend on this system functioning correctly. Maybe the most concerning part is realizing how modern life pushes the body in the opposite direction. Processed foods, excessive caffeine, chronic stress, poor sleep, extreme dieting, and declining mineral content in modern food slowly drain the body year after year. What's even more surprising is that many people live with this deficiency for years without realizing it because standard blood tests don't always show what's truly happening inside the cells. Someone looks at their lab results and everything appears normal, yet the body continues sending signals that something isn't functioning correctly. Constant fatigue, light sleep, anxiety, muscle cramps, heart palpitations, difficulty controlling blood sugar, constant hunger, and unstable energy throughout the day are signs many people learn to ignore until the exhaustion becomes something more serious. And maybe this is the most important part of everything we talked about today. Your body is not simply failing. In many cases, it's trying to function without the basic resources it needs to maintain balance, energy, and metabolic stability. And when the body finally receives enough support, things can begin to change gradually, but noticeably. Sleep improves, energy becomes more stable, the crashes become less intense, the mind feels clearer, and the entire body slowly starts moving out of that constant survival state. Not because there's a magic solution, but because sometimes the body simply needed to rebuild a foundation that had been weakened for a very long time. Over the next few days, pay closer attention to your body. Notice your energy after meals. Notice how you wake up in the morning. Pay attention to your sleep, your stress levels, and your mental clarity. Because many of the symptoms you've been treating as normal aging may actually be signs of an overloaded system quietly asking for help. And before we finish, if this topic made sense to you, it may be worth taking a look at the first pinned comment. I left something related to this topic that may complement everything we talked about today. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next video.